Okay, so we're now recording. So if you want a copy of this webinar or another webinar after we're done, just email me. And if you want to get on my email list, email me. I'll put up my email at the end. So thank you guys so much for coming. If you do have questions as we go, you can put them down in the chat and I'll answer them as we go as best I can. So let's get started. So welcome to Tropical Fruit Tuesdays, propagation by cuttings and division. We have these every other Tuesday until I run out of information, which is probably going to be pretty soon. I've done quite a few of these, so I'm getting a little dry. But in September 29th, we're going to do jackfruit. And October 13th, we're going to do plants with attitude. And what that is plants that have some sort of issue that we need to deal with. We talked about avocados last time, and certainly an issue they have is laurel wilt. So that would make the list of a plant with an attitude. And there's my email right there. It's sflhort@ufl.edu. And I'll show you that again at the end. Okay, so I always tell you this, where you can get good information. A really good place you can get it is the University of Florida database called EDIS, E-D-I-S. So if you Google EDIS space UF space and then your topic, you'll find really good peer-reviewed publications. So what that means is you can't just write it and put it up. I can write a fact sheet and put it up on our website without it being really reviewed that much, but the EDIS publications have to go through a lot of different levels of editing. So they're very good. And the one I have on display here is Tropical and Subtropical Fruit Propagation. We've already done grafting, we've done air layering, we've done seed, and now today we're going to finish it out with cuttings and division, and that's all in this EDIS. If you want to learn about mangoes, you would type EDIS space UF space mango, and you would get very good information on mangoes, like the cultivars, how to plant, pests, disease, when to fertilize, what to fertilize with, all that information. Another good place you can get information is from other universities. So if University of Florida doesn't have the information, you can type in, let's say you put in mango and then you put in EDU. So EDU would help you find other universities. Another good place to get information is YouTube. I just had an issue in my truck where it wasn't reading my text anymore. It stopped reading my text. So I looked on YouTube and I was able to reset it and fix that using a video that I found there. So it's a good place. You're going to get some bad information there as well, but for the most part, it's good information and it's visual, so that really helps. And it's kind of learns what you like. So mine is always showing me horticultural stuff as well as the other things I like. Good place to get information is Master Gardeners. I know a lot of you watching today are Master Gardeners. So thank you for all you do and all your volunteering. The best place I think you can get information is your own garden or your own grove. That's where if you see something, you know it's true because you saw it with your own eyes. So I really think it's a good idea if you walk your garden, you walk your grove, you take your coffee, go out there, you do it as often as you can because you're going to learn a lot from your own garden or your own grove. And then finally, beware of where you get information. There's a lot of bad information out there as well, as you know, so be careful about that. Try to get it from universities, Master Gardeners, what you see with your own eyes, things like that. Okay, so I did see someone ask a question. How are these classes advertised? I've done a few of your classes, but I had no clue of this one until someone shared it recently. I'd like to know in the future so I don't miss any. So the best way is to get on my email list because I advertise it a week before the class, and then I usually do it the day before the class as a reminder. So that would be the best way, and other people send it out as well, but I definitely send it out. So get on my email list, Nalini, if you can. And let's see if there's another question. I think that was it. Okay, so we'll go forward. So propagating, why do we propagate? Number one reason is to make more of what we have. Another good reason is to maintain a cultivar. So what does that mean? It means if you have a Mauritius lychee and you want to keep having Mauritius lychee, you can't plant the seed from that Mauritius lychee because it will be, the mother is a Mauritius, but the father could be something else. So the seedling, just like your own children, you're different from your parents, your children are different from you, it's going to be different. So to maintain the cultivar, we use asexual propagation, which is cuttings and division, air layers, and grafting. So that's how we can keep having a Mauritius year after year after year, and keep selling Mauritius or having Mauritius or giving Mauritius away. Another reason we propagate is to get ahead of disease. I had a tree in my grove here at work that had laurel wilt. It was a very good avocado. It was going to die. So I took a piece of it and grafted it on another avocado to try to keep that same cultivar alive before laurel wilt got to it. And obviously another reason to propagate is for profit. You want to grow more of a certain plant because you want to sell it. So that's another reason we propagate. Okay, I talked about this a little bit, types of propagation, sexual versus asexual. Sexual is just from seed, that's all that means. And from seed, you don't get a clone of the parent. Asexual is grafting, air layering, cuttings, division, and you get a clone of the parent. So here we have what I just talked about, the types, cuttings. Steve is saying my slides are not being sent out correctly. See only about the top left quarter. Is that the same for everybody, or is that just Dr. Green seeing it that way? If you guys could put that in the chat. Do you see the full screen? Should say asexual propagation types. Jonathan says slides look fine. Kareem says mine's full screen. Everybody's good, Steve. So maybe it's something on your end. Maybe try to do that. Okay, so it's you, Dr. Green. It's not you, it's me. Okay, so asexual propagation types. Oh no, that's how you break up. It is you, it's not me. Asexual propagation types. Cuttings, air layers, division, grafting, and tissue culture. So, asexual characteristics. It can be very fast. You're taking a mature tree and you're propagating it right away, so it's already mature when you propagate it. It doesn't have to go through all the stages of sexual maturity like you do with a seed. So you get a plant rather quickly. It can be very easy. We're going to see today cuttings, somewhat easy, but division, super easy. Division is the easiest propagation you can do. Air layering is pretty easy. And sometimes it's not easy, like grafting. Grafting is not easy. So clonal. Asexual is clonal, meaning that when you propagate asexually, you get a clone of the parent. So I talked about a Mauritius lychee. If you want a Mauritius lychee, this picture is someone air layering a lychee tree. It is a Mauritius, by the way. So if you want to do that, you would propagate it asexually and you would have a clone of the parent. If you want a Kerry mango, you've got to do it asexually to get a Kerry mango. If you want a Simmons avocado, you have to do it asexually to get a Simmons avocado. And for the most part, except for division, asexual only works with dicots. So things like mango, sapodillas, carambolas, jackfruit, Most of the techniques won't work on banana except division. Okay, so asexual types. These are the types and what type of tropical fruit works best with this. So air layers, you can do lychee, longan, and guava. You could do an air layer of an avocado, but the roots would never work well with our soil. Cuttings, basically spondius. Spondius are hog plum, ciruela. That's what you would use cuttings for. You can use cuttings for many other type of plants, but for tropical fruit, it's basically spondius. Division, bananas, pineapple, monstera is either sort of a division or a cutting. We're going to look at that today. It's sort of in between both because you're dividing it or you're making a cutting of it. Grafting, you're going to do mango, avocado, sapodilla, carambola, jackfruit, canistel, many others are done using grafting, including mamey. And tissue culture, a lot of people buy tissue culture grown bananas. Okay, I have a quick little 3-question poll for you, if I can get it to work. Let's see, here we go. All right, so there's 3 questions, so you have to scroll a little to get to all 3 questions. So there's the poll. And you're going to answer which best describes you, a commercial fruit grower, a master gardener, a plant lover, just want to learn. And then where you're located, and how many people are watching with you. This is just information for me. Okay, so we have 1 person outside the US. We have 6 people, 7 people watching with 2 or more. We have 2 people watching with 4 or more. I can't believe that, but that's what it says. Okay, I'm gonna end the poll there and move along. Thank you guys for that information. I just need that. Okay, see if I have any questions. Steve says cuttings also work for yucca. Yes, the agave family, not the root. Grown here for edible flowers. Toby says that I cut out for about a minute. So hopefully everybody else is still hearing me. I don't have the best internet at work, so I'm doing the best I can. Okay, so cuttings, let's get into cuttings. It can be fairly easy. When you do cuttings, you're gonna collect healthy material. You're gonna keep that material hydrated throughout. So you do the cuttings, you put it in a plastic bag, so it's as hydrated as possible. You're gonna put these cuttings into well-drained, sterile soil. You're gonna do it in the growing season. What is the growing season? That's sort of the rainy season, so that's now. Now is a good time to do it. Cuttings uses something called auxins. Auxins are hormones that tell a plant what to do. In this case, we're going to use root hormones that tell the plant to make roots. Okay, and then with any propagation, aftercare is crucial. Okay, and then someone emailed me some questions, so I'm going to take a look at those now. This was from Alice Chumara, so I hope she's here. Does time of year matter for cutting? So yes, it's much better in the growing season, in the wet season, which is about the end of May to beginning of October. What are the best tools? So we're going to look at that. What soil medium do you prefer? I just mentioned that you want to use a well-draining, sterile soil, and we'll look at that a little bit. And which fruit trees will not root via cuttings? So some of them, you can get them to root, but their roots are not going to be in good shape for our high pH soil. So really, spondius are the only ones that you can do well. And like Steve said, Dr. Green said, yucca. Okay, so cuttings, why does it work? Remember, we're going to be doing this with dicots. This is what a dicot or a tree looks like inside if you were to cut it open. So what I want you to look at is the xylem in the middle. Whoops, sorry about that. The phloem on the outside, and then cambium. Cambium makes more xylem and more phloem. The phloem, things go from the leaves, the energy the leaves make go down in the phloem. And they're also attached to some auxins. So the auxins are telling the plant when you get to where you're going, when you get to the end of the line, I want you to make roots. Okay, so that will go all the way down to the roots, and then it makes roots. The xylem, water and nutrition goes up in the xylem. Now, if we make a cutting and we cut this whole thing, when we have things going from the top of the plant down through the phloem, they stop at the end of the cutting. But they're being told to make roots by these auxins. So they just make roots right there. Plants are amazing in that their cells can be either a leaf, a stem, or a root. So they can change these stem cells and change them into roots. And that's why cuttings work. So we're going to look at that a little more. So don't feel bad if you don't have it all right now. Okay, so spondius are kind of boring. They don't have a lot of leaves right now this time of year. And I wanted to go through the steps of propagation by cuttings because I actually wanted to propagate this plant. This is a croton, and it's a certain type. You see it's got all these wavy leaves on it. It's called dreadlocks. And I wanted to propagate it. It's at my brother's house. And I want to propagate it because my daughter saw it at Naples Botanical Garden and she really liked it. So I want to propagate it for her. So we're going to go through the steps of propagating this by cuttings. And you can use this on other plants as well. Okay, so the tools, I just have my little hand pruners and I have a bag to put the cuttings in. At first, that's all you need. And then I'm taking the cuttings. They're going to be about, I would say, 10 inches, 8 inches, and they're going to be about the width of a pencil. So I cut them off. I cut off all the lower leaves, and then the top leaves, I chop them in half or to about a third. And then I put them in the bag. Okay, then I go to my potting table. I mix up some soil. So what we see on the left, on the top, it's in a bucket. The top, you have the typical soil, which is, sort of pine bark, peat moss, and these white things called perlite. But I add a lot more perlite. I add at least a third more perlite, and I mix it all together, and then you get what you see on the right. What the perlite helps you do is it helps the water drain. And you remember, you have these cuttings, you're sticking them in soil, and they don't have roots, so they're not taking up water, so you need really good drainage. So that's why I add more perlite. Okay, then here's all my cuttings. I have them, see, I took off the lower leaves. I chopped the top leaves a little bit like that. So these are ready to go into containers. Okay, so what do? Here's my container on the left. I have a 1 gallon container and I fill it up almost to the top. I leave about 3/4 of an inch at the top. Then I take the cutting with my hand pruners and I cut off the very end. I make a fresh cut. I want that fresh cut because I'm going to stick it, if you look at the picture on the right, I'm going to stick it into this rooting hormone. This is an auxin. This is a man-made auxin. And it's very similar to what the plant has that tells the plant to root. So I'm putting this auxin on the bottom of the plant to help it root. And you notice I just put a little into a little dish. I don't stick it in the container. It comes in a little plastic container because I want to keep it as sterile as possible. So after I use this, I'll just wash that out and not reuse the powder. Okay, so I cut off the bottom. I stick it in the root zone. And then I take a pencil or a pen or a piece of bamboo and I stick it into the soil. So when I stick the cutting into the hole, the root tone won't come off. The rooting powder won't fall off. Okay, and this is what it would look like when it's done. So you have about 4 or 5 in each container. And I stick them in, and then once I stick them in, I sort of push them down with my hands around so they're in there really nice and tight. Okay, so then we have this nice, good, lot of perlite in there, so the water's going to go through nice and quickly. Then I water, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to check these every day. If they're dry, I'll water them. If they're moist, I won't. And then we're going to wait till we see some growth at the top of the plant. We see some buds breaking. We see some growth there. And then I'm going to look at the bottom. There's holes at the bottom of the containers. I'm going to look for roots. If I see roots, I can let them grow. And each container can have this many in it, like 4 or 5, or I can separate them and each one can be its own separate plant. So that's up to you. Okay, so now we're going to go through the same technique again with a little bit different, because this time we're going to put it in straight perlite. And this only works if you have something like a mist house, or if you're going to put it in a plastic bag to keep it very humid. But I prefer what I just showed you. Okay, so same thing. We have our cutting. We cut off some of the leaves. We cut off the bottom. Cut off some of the leaves. Stick it in root tone or the auxins. You see it's just straight perlite. So she's putting a bamboo, piece of bamboo in there, and then she's going to stick it in like that. Here's what I didn't have a picture of with the other one, where you pat it down so it stays nice and straight. And then you see there's 3, 4, 5 in there. And then this will go into here. This is a mist bench. See, these are little misters. So this goes and mists like every 15 minutes or something like that. So unless you have one of those, I wouldn't put it in straight perlite. I would put it in a good soil mix like I showed you. Okay, so general cuttings information. Okay, someone's asking, what is the ingredient for homemade root solution? Okay, so I purchased that root solution, which you see here. It's not homemade. It's, you can just buy, if you look for rooting hormone, there's a couple different brands and you can get it. And what it is it's an auxin, A-U-X-I-N, and it's not homemade. Plants make it themselves, but I'm purchasing it, which is made, you know, chemically, and I use it to help with rooting. So it's not homemade, but you can get it. Just look for rooting hormone. Okay, so cuttings information, to sum it up. It is fairly easy, as you just saw. We're going to use and collect healthy material. So you saw those crotons I took were very healthy. Keep hydrated throughout. So you saw I put it in a plastic bag. I took it from the bag, I put it in the pot, and then watered it. You're going to use well-draining, sterile soil. You saw I added a lot of perlite to make it very well-draining. Sterile soil, if you just purchase soil, it's going to come sterile, and just keep keep it protected, it'll be fine. You're going to do it in the growing season, and you're going to use auxins, the root hormone. And as always, with any of your propagation, aftercare is crucial. So those crotons, if you saw, I had them on the top of a table, of my potting table, and that's on the north side of my house. So it doesn't get a lot of sun, but it does get some light. So it's not full sun. So you don't want to have it in full sun. Okay. All right, now we're going to finish up with division. We talked about cuttings. In the past, we've talked about air layers. We've talked about grafting. We've talked about seed. Our final propagation type is division. Division is very easy. You can almost make one cut, take a piece and throw it somewhere, and it will grow. You're going to use healthy material. When you do division, you're going to have the mother plant, and you're going to have usually what are called pups or babies. When they're about a quarter size of the mother, that's when you can divide them, not when they're smaller. So here we're looking at a classic thing that we do division with, which is bromeliads. You see all these bromeliads, almost all of them are the same exact cultivar. So if we take one of them and we cut it away from the parent, it's going to grow, and we're going to have a clone of the parent. And you're going to use well-draining, sterile soil. You're going to do it in the growing season, although this will probably work in our cooler weather as well. And aftercare is crucial. Okay, so for tropical fruit, the real one that we think of with division is bananas. Bananas, you can't do grafting or air layering or cuttings for the most part with bananas, but you can do division. So here's a whole clump of bananas. They're all exactly the same. They all came from one banana that was in the middle. They grew out in the mat. It's called a mat. And each banana that comes out is a sucker, and it's a pup of the parent, and it's a clone. So if you want to grow a particular type of banana, if you have a friend that has a banana that you really like, you can get a pup of that, a young banana that's growing next to it. And when it's about a third of the size of the parent, or a quarter, you can divide it. So you chop it down below, you chop it, you take as many of the roots as you can, and you can move it to where you're going to grow it. You can put it right in the ground. You don't have to grow it in a container because they're pretty big. Monterio is asking, is soursop suitable for rooting or best to air layer or by seed? Soursop, you would want to do that by seed or by grafting, Monterio. So division, very good for bananas, very easy. Okay, so here's Monstera deliciosa. This is a tropical fruit that you can actually eat. I'm sure you've seen it as an ornamental, which is how I'm using it here, but it has a fruit that you can eat. And word of warning with the fruit, if you eat it before it's ready, it'll sting your mouth. It has little acid crystals in it that will sting your mouth. So you wait till it kind of falls apart, and that's when you can eat it. But this Monstera, you're either taking a cutting of it or you're dividing it. But see, you have this whole plant over here, you have another plant over here, another one over there, another one over there. These all came from about 3 individual plants that were here by the windows, and they've grown out. And so if I want to go down here and cut this one off, I can take it and move it to somewhere else. So I'm taking it and dividing it. So here's what it looks like down below. And if I just go back here and make a cut, I can pull that out. There's going to be roots in here. You can see right there, there's some roots. I can pull that out and I can move it. So this is kind of in between a cutting or division, but it's very simple. It works really well. You can do that with a lot of different aroids. Um, Odalis is asking, what's the best way to propagate avocado, cutting or air layer? Avocado, actually, you're going to do it by grafting. That's the best way for avocado. Okay, so here is not a great in focus picture, but this is another aeroid. This is Philodendron burley marks, and it's a small leaf aeroid, but you can take any of these pieces and grow more of it very easily. So that's sort of division as sort of cuttings. So here's, these are bromeliads, and you see all these different bromeliads, they're all clones of each other. And if you take one, if you go down below and chop it away from the parent, you can grow that bromeliad. And so don't ever buy bromeliads. You can get them from your friends very easily. If you want bromeliads, we have a bunch here at Extension that I'd be glad to let you take some divisions of. Eric is asking for the monstera, should we trim the leaves back fully? You can trim them back a little bit. I would trim maybe 2/3 of the leaves and leave the top ones, depending on if you're going to be watering it that often or if you have it in the shade or in the sun. And monstera really likes shade better than sunlight. They get a little yellow in the sun. And then Carrie is asking, should we cut by the nodes or does that not make a difference? So bromeliads, you're not going to have nodes, and I'll show you a picture of that later. But here, this would be a node right here where the leaf touches the stem. So I would go sort of in between right there. I would actually come back further here because underneath here, you're going to have all roots. So you cut that back and then you cut off 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, maybe 7 of the leaves and leave these over here, 7 or 8 or 9, and leave the top ones. Then that's how I would propagate it. Okay, so what we're looking at on the left is a bromeliad up in a tree. And what I want you to see in this picture is here's one, and then you have them connected, and here's another. So this one is 1/3 of the parent. So we could cut that right there and propagate it very easily by division. Now what we're looking at on the right is an orchid. And this is a big orchid that hangs down the tree and has these big hanging pink flowers. But it also makes these little pups right here. This is a baby of the parent. So I could divide that and have the same orchid and grow it somewhere else. It's a very great orchid, so I'm definitely going to do that. Lena is asking, is the West Indian cherry, Barbados cherry, a good plant to propagate via cuttings? I think you could do it cuttings, I think you could do it air layers, and I think you could do it by seed. I think all would be good for the Barbados cherry. West Indian cherry is maybe a common name for Barbados cherry as well, but there's also a West Indian cherry that is a native plant that you would grow by seed. Okay, so general division information, as you saw, and we're looking at the left here, we're looking at another orchid that we could divide. Division is very easy. You're going to use healthy material. Material should be 1/4 size of the mother plant, 1/4 to 1/3. You're going to use well-draining sterile soil when you move it from one to the next. You're going to do it in the growing season. And the aftercare is crucial. And Dacia is saying, FYI, Home Depot and Pinecrest has Barbados cherry trees. Come on, Dacia, that's cutting to the whole, that's cutting out all the work we're doing here with learning how to propagate. We want to do it on our own. We don't want to just buy it. Come on now, let's play nice. Okay, so thank you guys. We had some good questions. If you have more questions, certainly ask them. Here's my email, nice and big for you to have. And you can ask me more questions on my email. You can ask for a copy of this or a video, a link to this video. And you can also ask to get on my email list. So Julieta is asking for grafting. Can you graft across a family? So not a family. A family is very big, but within a genus, you can. So when you look at a plant like mango, it's called Mangifera indica. So that first word, Mangifera, is the genus. There's other Mangiferas that are related called mango relatives that you can graft onto each other. So if the genus is the same, usually the grafting will work. Like you can graft a canistel onto a meme because they're both Pruterias. And Carrie is asking, can we get a copy of the PDF? So PDF, maybe you're thinking of the EDIS that I showed at the beginning. That you can just find online if you Google EDIS space UF space Tropical Fruit Propagation. And Carrie's asking for the PowerPoint. So I will have a copy of this as a link that you can have. So if you like that, you just email me. Okay, so thank you guys so much. And thank you for coming. We had 52 people today. I think we were up to 54 at one point, so that's really great. And I will see you guys in another 2 weeks. Thanks so much for coming. I appreciate you coming. And for all you guys saying thank you, you're certainly welcome. Thank you so much for coming. Dr. J, good to see you. Dr. Green, good to see you. Celia, good to see you. Matthew, Julieta. I know Benoit was on. Good to see Benoit's name. Okay, guys, have a great rest of your day.